Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS and betting preview for round 4 of the Olympics. Going to break down what to expect from the golf course and get you ready for all of your exposure tomorrow. But first off, welcome on in. Hopefully you're having a fantastic Saturday and are ready to talk some golf out there for Sunday. We got Michael down there, says podium or nothing. Welcome on in, my man. We got Nick down there as well, the big winner out there from yesterday's stream. Says pretty pumped out there for this finish, and I don't know how you couldn't be with the sort of leaderboard that we have. So I'm going to be waking up early for this one, getting an early rest tonight, as it's going to be absolute fireworks out there. They're expecting 30,000 fans. That finishing stretch is an absolute brute. Some real difficult pins on the back nine, and I think it's going to be absolute cinema. So first off, hopefully you're having a fantastic night, everyone, and say hi down to chat. Let's start it off with a talk about our presenting sponsor of the live stream, which of course are our friends over there at the Ship It Nation. Ship It Nation are your source for all your needs with DFS, not just what we talk here with golf, right? I know a lot of you guys are playing sports like football when that comes around, college DFS, or even sports like basketball, hockey, UFC, like we have going on right now. And they are my source for all of those sports. So tonight, when I was building my lineups out here for this UFC card, went on there to the Ship It Nation. They've got a slate plan for you. And as somebody that's more of a casual fan of the sport like myself, it's a great resource to have. It gives me all the research on it, all the betting lines for the UFC players on there, projections, a little player pool advice too goes a whole long way. And I've been using that the last month or so, and it's worked out extremely well for my process. So of course, guys, they have that for all the different sports out there, not just UFC or PGA like you see in some of Hoop and Tambo's content out there. So great guys, run a great site. It's not going to price gouge you for all those different sports. And over there, they're all about the process as well. So you'll get your projections, you'll get player pool advice, so on and so forth, but also a lot of advice on how to actually put lineups together. So a great crew, glad to have them here as a sponsor on the live stream. And code Luke10 will give you a discount off any membership. So make sure to check them out if you guys haven't already signed up there. And again, using that code Luke10 will give you a little bit of a discount. But let's talk about this golf course today, which played pretty flat, which was expected. There wasn't going to be a huge difference in terms of weather. So we split it down the middle. Look at the first 30 guys versus the last 30. You'll see it was about a 0.1 shot difference. So next to no difference between the two quote unquote waves. But because there were no, hour, 2 hour difference in tee times, we weren't going to see much to begin with. So maybe the 0.1 shot difference was due to slightly more receptive conditions, but really that was to be expected beforehand. And when we go over here to the wind forecast on Sunday, it's much of the same. It's pretty much flat regardless of when you look at it, maybe 2-3 miles an hour higher there in the afternoon, but you're talking about a marginal difference at best. So when you're talking about a weather, trying to find a quote unquote edge out there for Sunday, I just don't see it when it comes to the weather. And as I explained yesterday, though, it doesn't mean you only take later starters. And while there are placement points to play out here for Sunday, you're going to get a few guys in the morning, a few mid-starters that likely go out there and go off, and those players are going to have lower ownership than their later counterparts. And while you're going to want to prioritize getting a few top 3 finishers, probably the winner out there for the large field GPP, don't sleep on taking a few of those mid to early guys for some of that leverage. So worth noting from the weather perspective that I don't see much out there for tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that you can just go out there and play all the chalk either. So let's bring up our DFS projections, start talking about that aspect of things, and go through all of your player questions. So now is the time, by the way, to go ahead, smash that like button if you haven't already, but also throw any questions that you have down in the live chat. So if it's a specific player that you want my take on, feel free to go ahead and let me know. Don't give me like, are you playing this guy questions out there for tomorrow? If you want to give me 2-on-2s, I'll do that. I guess I'll look at head-to-heads, maybe give you a lean on that. But more importantly, right, if you want to know shots gained metrics, right, whether they set up well for Sunday, those are the kind of questions that I'm looking for. So if you're curious, just let me know down in live chat. And if you don't know whether I want to answer or not, just ask anyways, right? Worst I can say is no out there to your question. And I promise I won't grill you too bad. But let's catch up on chat, see what's going on, and get this thing rolling. What's going on? Why I win? Wayne says, thank you for stepping up and filling the void in Daily Showdown. I've been doing this for a long time, Wayne. So yeah, obviously like to be there and help you guys out. But yeah, I've been doing this for 2-3 years. So been consistently doing it, and that is not going to change. What's going on, J-Biz? They are going to tear it up again. Yeah, course is soft, maybe harder pins out there on Sunday, but I think you're going to see some low scores. My prize picks play yesterday saved your day. Glad to hear that, Mark. And yeah, let's roll it back for Sunday. And do I think anyone mails it in if they aren't in contention? Probably not. And worth noting, guys, the Showdown plays yesterday, right? We had 6 on the live stream. They combined for a combined score of -23. So once again, the Showdown plays absolutely smacked out there on the live stream. And personally, about a 5x ROI on that. We did profit on our props as well, went 1 for 1 on our slips over there on the live stream. So yeah, let's run it back, shall we? Hopefully we can continue that into the final day. What's going on, Chris? Happy Sunday. Let's have a effing day. Absolutely agree. Kaba going to backdoor top 10. Hey, if trends are a thing over here in 2024, for sure, right? He's been doing it all year. He's going to be sub 5% owned, but he is an ugly click up there towards the top end of the board. So I like the way you're thinking, Nick. If you're going to get really different up there, maybe you take a shot on it. But I'll talk about the dynamic up top here in a bit. J-Miz says, whoever you take, just pray they hit the fairway in 18. No more truth than that, brother. That 17 too. If you miss the fairway in 17, you're looking for a world of hurt. Content fire as always. Appreciate that to Peach. Welcome on in, my man. We have a question about the live guys, about the OWGR points. Mito doesn't answer, you think does, for example. Well, that's a way to be results oriented, right? After one day, I would say that most of them care, right, about the OWGR points, but it is impossible to go out there and quantify that. So as you hit the nail on the head, right? Some guys probably care, some guys don't, but I wouldn't be that results oriented about it, right? As one round, obviously guys just have bad days, and I don't know if I'd be jumping to conclusions like that. And that's all I'll say about it. What's going on, Joshua? How many shots back do I think is reasonable for a player to have a shot at a top 3? So that's a good question. Let me take a look at the leaderboard and I guess think through it a little bit. There are 62s out there, right? 9 under par sort of rounds. So in theory, I guess you could be like 5 under, maybe even something like 3 under par and get up into the top 3. Now, more realistically, it's probably like 6, 7 under par, right? To go out there and get a top 3 finish. And even then, it's going to take something like 7 under par or better. So to give you a more realistic look, like if you're looking for a guy to shoot -5 and get into the top 3, it's your -8, -9. So kind of depends on the contest you're looking for, right? What you look for as a ceiling performance. But yeah, if you shoot a -9, you could be -4, -5, potentially snip that top 5, which is wild about this golf course. I mean, you saw it with Nikolai Højgaard today, somebody I was fortunate to play myself, and you've seen it for a few other guys this week, right? Guido round 1 went off. Matthias Schmid, right? He's made a shit ton of birdies this week. It is just that kind of golf course. What's going on, Zach? How many guys am I aiming for in my build to make the top 20? I would say at least 4, if not 5 or 6 of them. Most of your guys, even if they're starting further back, right, in a 60-man field, if they're starting at like 40th, you're hoping for a -5, -6 score. Right? That's the kind of ceiling performance you're hoping for. They do that, they probably finish top 20. So honestly, probably all 6 golfers. It's not like I have to have guys that can finish in the top 20. But in reality, if you're using a complete slappy down low that has no top 20 equity, right, even if he shoots like -6, -7, he's not going to get to that kind of score. You're playing one of those at most in the lineup, right? Those guys are going to be sub 5%. I'm talking guys even par, maybe over par over the first 3 rounds. I wouldn't make a habit out of using those players. So you can use them for leverage. You can use them sparingly, but I wouldn't have like over 2 of them in any given lineup. What's going on, Grimes? He said, love your content. Been trying to follow me in the weekend in golf. What is my DK handle? It is Gsluke, J Grimes. What's going on, Nick? The fact that Mito didn't try to qualify for the Open led you to believe that he didn't care. I think that's a decent conclusion, but I don't know. You'd have to ask him to really know that, right? What's going on, Wayne? Usually you're quick to forgive, but you don't think you can go back to Mito. Hey, if you can't forgive him, then don't do so, right? I think that's a perfectly fair take. And no one was telling you to play him anyways, right? That never came out of my mouth. But let's talk through a few guys that I do like over there for my Showdown lineup. So starting up top with Scotty Scheffler. If you're looking for tee to green form, looking for the world's best player, well, you got all of that with Scotty Scheffler. And we'll talk about the ownership dynamics here in a second, but he's only 13.6% owned. Part of that is the fact that he's not -14. like you have with Xander Schauffele and a John Rahm, but also the fact that he's $11,900. Both of those are going to squeeze his ownership down, and that is just a gold mine waiting to happen, right? If Scottie Scheffler goes out there, pulls Sunday at the Players Championship out, he pulls any of these Sunday performances, API, right, all of his wins this season, well, you're going to have him out there in laps. So it won't matter if he's $11,900. And it's not saying that that's 100% going to happen, but you don't have to play him in all your lineups tomorrow, right? He's 13.6% owned. If you played him in 30%, that is leverage right there. And you can't tell me that you think that he has zero win equity or zero chance to go out there and have that nuclear round. So I'll take a shot on Scottie, especially when the shots gained metrics have just been vintage Scottie Scheffler. I mean, going out there, tee to green, being top 10 in every single category, he finds a way to go out there and somehow make a few putts and watch out. Now, that's a huge if. That's why he's only going to be about 13.6% owned. But at the same time, I'll take that upside all day, right? He has infinitely more upside than I think almost every player in this field. And truly, the kind of guy, if he gains 2-3 strokes to the field, could break the scoring record at this course. And if you think about the last time they played the Olympics, you had Rory Sabatini go out there and shoot -10. Obviously, more of a slappy. You didn't see that coming. But you have that kind of performance on Sunday, and you could go out there and win the damn thing. So I like him. I know a few buddies of mine that have actually bet him outright after the first few days, and a few of them got over 10-1 on that. So one of those being Nick down there in chat, and I've got to say, pretty jealous of people that are holding that kind of ticket. Let's talk about the ownership dynamic up top. So if Scottie's going to get squeezed down, well, where is that ownership coming in? And as I mentioned, it's on players like Xander Schauffele and John Rahm. Both of these options are -14 to this point and are at the top of the leaderboard, right? So they're starting with those also coveted placement points. But at the end of the day, you still got to go out there and score, to go out there and make the optimal lineup. And with all these guys in contention, all these studs at the top end of the board, it's going to take at least a -5, maybe even a -6 round to get that done. Even if you end up winning the golf tournament, just somebody up there is going to get some top 5 placement points that shoots like -6, -7, and they could easily knock that player off the board. So I'm looking at more so just a player's scoring ability up top than their placement to start. So if somebody like Xander, John Rahm, in the case of tomorrow, are going to be like 30% owned, even over 30% projected owned, then why not take Scottie at less than half that ownership? So that's the idea with me playing Scottie. I guess you can probably tell what I'm doing with Xander and John Rahm. And in fact, I'm fading one of them. I am playing one of them in my lineup, so I'm not fading both of them. However, I do think that there is an argument to be made for going out there and actually avoiding both of those players. So that's what I'll say about the top end of the board. A few other guys getting ownership. You've got Tommy Fleetwood down here, also Hideki Matsuyama, who are coming in at affiliated ownership numbers. Hideki about 25%. I believe Tommy Fleetwood is about 27% projected ownership. All of these sort of players, they're usable, right? Like I said, I'm playing at least one of those out there in my lineups for tomorrow, but they aren't going to get you different up top. If they're a conviction spot, somebody that you think is going to go out there and have a good round, then play them, right? Don't use them just because they're at the top end of the board, because going out there and finishing top 5 with like 3-4 under par is probably not going to be enough tomorrow. There's just going to be enough ceiling performances you'd have to imagine where, again, 5-6 under par is what I think the threshold is going to be for a ceiling performance. Moving down a little bit further, ownership is coming in on guys like a Tom Kim, as you'd expect. Thomas Dietrich in this range is by far the highest owned player. And a sneaky play I want to point out, he's not my favorite play. Again, he's only 11.3% owned, so it's not like you have to take him in a whole bunch of lineups to get leverage. But I like where Corey Connors is sitting. He's -7, just kind of sneakily plodding along. A very accurate player, which we like for this kind of golf course. And if he goes out there and he has the kind of round we're hoping for, again, -5, -6 is that barometer that we're looking for. That could be around -13. And though that might not be a top 5, it could be right on the edge of going out there and accomplishing that. If he shoots -6 at $8,900, if he's going to get at least top 10 placement points, I'd venture to say that he's almost for sure going to be an optimal play. So I could see a world where Corey Connors goes out there and does what we're looking for. And though that he's not towards the top end of the board, that's why his ownership is so low, right? Compared to guys like a Tom Kim, he's not quite half the ownership, but is about that. Guys like Aubert, even Joaquin Niemann getting just a little bit more steam than Coco. And from the course fit perspective, he's one of my favorite options at this golf course. So just somebody I wanted to point out, again, maybe not my favorite play for tomorrow, right? Not even going to be close to my highest owned option. However, I do think he brings some intrigue when it comes to trying to get different. And pointing him out is not just to give you guys an option to use, right? Pick and choose who you want to use yourselves, right? Just because I'm using them does not mean that you have to play them, but it's more so giving you perspective for leverage options up top, right? I'm not going to anyone that's crazy, right? That's completely out of it with placement. Instead, guys that are just a little bit lower owned, right? They're like half the ownership as some of the more chalky options, and they still could finish in that top 5 in theory. So again, the scoring is a premium at this course. You're going to see some low rounds. You're going to see some blow up rounds with all the water out there as well. But to be a ceiling performance of optimal play, again, 5-6 under is what we're looking for. Let's catch up on chat and see what we're doing. We're with Jordan here. Says, thanks for the Wyndham tout yesterday. Definitely won you some money. How low down the board am I going to play in Showdown? So about $6,900 is where I'm cutting it off. I just hate the lower end of the 6K range, and a lot of those guys aren't playing well, so I'm staying away from it. Is there a best site to bet DFS? I like Draftkings the most for DFS. They just have the biggest prize pools, the biggest contest. So that's why I choose to do that. And that's what I would stick for. Nick says, thoughts on Aubert? I think he's in decent position. I played him today, right? I took advantage of the ceiling round. So what I say about guys like that is sometimes you're just chasing that low round, and they're capable of going back-to-back days, right? Especially a stud player like we have here with Stud Vig, as I call him. The iceberg, as some would call him as well. But $9,100, I don't look at him differently than anyone else in this range. In fact, there's somebody in that same range that I like a little bit more. In fact, there are 2 guys sandwiched right around him that I like a little bit more than Aubert, but I guess I could have made him the option that I took, right? He's not that much different than Neiman and Tom Kim that I like out there for tomorrow. And I guess the better comparison would be Neiman because he's about that same sort of ownership. I'd rather take the guy that had a little bit of a disappointing round the day before than trying to tail the guy that is -6 on his day before or -5 like you had with Aubert, right? It just feels like Neiman is due for some regression. I hate to say that, but having played PGA DFS for so long, it's true, right? You see these guys go out there, they can't make a thing one day, and then the next day they go out there and have themselves a day. So I like that about it. You said you're quick to forgive players that, okay, yeah, good for that. You should be quick to forgive players, right? It's one day and, they're trying their best to go out there and play well, right? So why get mad at them when they obviously have a lot more online than you? So definitely the kind of mindset to have, and I agree with that, my man. Let's move on a little bit further. So we talked about Coco. I guess ownership-wise, Dietrich, Mega Chalky, guys like a Jason Day, EVR, also approaching about 20% ownership. Christian Bezainhoop, same story. Victor Perez, actually over 20%. Højgaard down here, about 30% ownership. So your chalk, your guys up there in the top 10, you're going to pay a premium on that ownership. And I'll just say, of those chalky guys, right, those like 6 players that we talked about, I'm only playing 2 of them. So it's not like they're unplayable. I'm not going to tell you who the 2 chalky players are. If you want to know, that's what the Patreon page is for. So feel free to check that out. But the chalky options up top aren't really that interesting to me. You're going to pick your spots. You're going to find your conviction spots. The thing that I think is a lot more important are finding the guys to fade that are at those ownership numbers. And, I think that's where you can go out there and win or lose out there for Sunday. And I guess the important thing I want to point out, even though I'm not going to tell you the ones that I'm playing, are that I'm playing at least 2 of those players, right? Guys in that 7-8K range that are at inflated ownership, because you're going to have placement points. You cannot completely avoid that over there at this golf course because there are too many quality players in contention. There are just too many at the top end of the board for none of them to go off, right? By the way, for you only taking early starters to like pay off tomorrow, you'd have to hope that the whole late wave just happens to only shoot like -3, -4. And that's just not going to happen, right? This golf course is too easy. There are way too many birdies out there. Par 5s, by the way, are set up easier out there for Sunday. You're going to see some eagles. I think multiple eagle holes out there for tomorrow. And you might even see somebody break that scoring record. So low winds, easy par 5 pins are how you get to something close to 60. And I think we might see that over here tomorrow. So just keep that in mind when you're playing, guys. Or like if you're just completely fading the top end of the board, I think that's a fool's errand out there for tomorrow. I just don't see the incentive for doing so. And especially for Sunday Showdown, right? If it was round 3 Showdown, I did that today. It worked out quite well out there for my exposure. There were only a few guys towards the top end of the board that I played. Sunday Showdown, you have to bring on more of that top end leaderboard spots. You just have to get some placement points to take down a GPP. Again, it's not the end all be all, but it's going to be a factor out there for Sunday. Next up, we got Guido Migliozzi at $7,700. And I'm sure Nick is pissed off that I'm going to say this, but he's my play of the week. I loved Guido. I know that Nick loves Guido out there for tomorrow as well. And he's only 8.1% owned. And the reason why you would love Guido at this event, and specifically on Sunday at this event, is the last time he played here, well, he went out there and shot a 61 out there on his final round. So tied the course record, by the way, out there on that performance and won the damn golf tournament. So under the most pressure imaginable, played his best round. So today was not his best stuff. First 2 days for Guido were solid stuff. He was in contention after Friday. Today, though, moved himself down that leaderboard, and now he's going to be a low-owned play, right? Day 3 Showdown, even for today, he was about 15, maybe even about 20% in some contests. Now you're getting a sub 10% owned Guido, an earlier tee time because he put one on the water on 18. And I was telling Nick, I was like, hey, like, he's a better play now, right? Is he not? Like, now we get Guido Sunday at his golf course, the one that he owns, essentially, out there with that Sunday performance at single-digit ownership and going off a little bit earlier. So, yeah, sorry to spill the beans, I guess, but that's a play that I know that he's co-signed and one that I'll definitely be on here for Sunday. He's definitely not somebody you're looking to finish top 20. I would say for him to finish top 10 would be a complete pipe dream at -4, but you're more so just looking for the raw score at this point. So he's an example of a player where I'm not really looking for those placement points, which you can include in lineups. I think there's a time and place for it, particularly in large field GPPs, but you shouldn't make a habit of it. You shouldn't make every single play somebody that doesn't have that placement point potential. As again, especially in like the large field contest when you have to beat 20,000 entries, you're going to have some of that upside. And then finally, the last play we're going to talk about here is only 4 for this live stream. Again, full player pool, full projections, ownership are available on my Patreon page, but it's Subankar Sharma, who everyone seems to hate at this point, right? He's just been very average, very mediocre to this stage of the week. He's only 10.6% owned and was that mega chalk that everyone took down low. And what I can tell you about these guys is that when people want to go out there and quit their favorite piece of chalk, you know what happens? They go out there and they break the slate. They completely break the back of the people that went out there and faded them. And this just feels like the perfect spot for that to happen. So again, I've been doing this for a while, right? I kind of get what happens when you play DFS. Great plays are great plays. And there was a reason why Sharma was the mega chalk this week. The reason why? Elite level course history. Just like Guido Migliozzi, a player that routinely finishes in the top 10, top 20 here. He's accurate off the tee. He's a very strong iron player. And to this stage of the week, he's not really shown that. So if you're looking for form, run the other direction. But if you're looking for a player that has upside at this sort of venue and can save you a bunch of salary at $6,900, well, that's what you're going to get out there with Sharma. So it's a little bit of a meme play, I would say, just because you're kind of hoping that he goes out there and figures it out. But I'll just say that there's a reason why guys are chalk heading into the week. There's a reason why, for one reason or another, it could be form, it could be course history, course fit in some cases, right? Even if guys don't have that course history, it's course fit, course history, and form out there for Sharma, right? He had all 3 going for him, solid iron form heading into the event, and that's why he ended up being pretty popular out there. So in terms of chalk down low, there's not a lot in the 6K range. In fact, that's why I'm not getting a lot of exposure down there, but I do have Toasty at about 20%, so you got to keep an eye on that one. I've got guys like Olesen at about 20% ownership too. So, you know, Højgaard we mentioned before, right? A few of these other options are going to be chalky. Outside of that, though, right, at worst, you're getting like 10% on somebody like the Sharma. And in a 60-player field, that's the average ownership for a player. Worth noting that Matt Fitzpatrick did withdraw, so I guess there's only 59 players out there for Sunday. So your average ownership is actually a little bit higher than that 10%. So normally a 10% owned 6K guy would be pretty disgusting, but just remember that it's just like after the cut line of a PGA Tour event, right? There's only so many players to choose from, and thus why you get higher ownership numbers in this 6K range. So this is about as low as I'll go. I don't have anyone cheaper in my player pool, I believe, just as I don't have to go down there for my salary. Even if I'm playing Scotty Scheffler, I'm taking more of a balanced approach with my build rather than going with a double spend up. It's just, again, trying to fish in this 6K range to try and find a ceiling performance is doable. There are probably one, maybe two guys tomorrow that might go off from this range. But unless you have huge conviction on a guy and you end up getting him right tomorrow, it's going to be hard to pay it off, right? These are the kind of guys that you're probably comfortable using in 7 to 15% of lineups, maybe 20% if you really like the guy. And unless you get those 20% of lineups right with the other 5 spots, it can be tough. So if you're willing to go 20% on a guy down here, 15% maybe, then do it, right? Because that's going to give you at least a decent chance to try and get the right combination. But if you're trying to scattershot guys at like 5 to 7% down here, even as a 150 maxer, that's just not going to get the job done. When it's this week, when you have the lack of options that we have here, that's when it becomes a little bit of an issue. So that's why I wanted to point out Sharma. Again, a little bit of the kind of guy that could just stick it to the guys that have been talking shit about him. And that wouldn't surprise me to see him go out there and have a Sunday. Let's catch up on chat, see what's going on, and then we'll talk through some props. I've already got some slips in, so it'll be pretty quick. Where are we at? Thoughts on Toasty. So I like the way that he's played so far. I've got to say he's one of my favorite players just because of his brash attitude, the energy that he plays with. I like the fuck you attitude that he shows on the golf course. However, this isn't the best track for him. You want to play him at courses where you can bang driver off the tee. And the fact that he's in contention at this point, right, at least top end of the board, is surprising to me. I did not expect that. I did not think he was going to have a particularly good week. So I'm on the side of thinking that he might eventually fall into trouble off the tee. This is the kind of course where you miss 40, 50 yards offline. You could be out of bounds. You hit it in the water. There's plenty around this track. And it's a ticking time bomb waiting to happen, in my opinion. So again, that's not to say that I don't like the guy. He's actually one of my favorite players out there, but it's a ticking time bomb waiting to go off, I would say. Guido, yeah, I knew Nick would like that one. Who is breaking the record tomorrow? I think it's Scotty. He's saying it's 62, not 61. Yeah, I think Scotty's shooting 61. I'll say it right now. I think I alluded to it before. I was trying to give you breadcrumbs of what I was saying there. But yeah, dude, I don't know. I've got TPC Sawgrass vibes. Maybe it's the water at the end. Maybe it's just the style of golf course. The amphitheater at the end. Hot take alert, I guess. Scotty Scheffler, if he has his putter, it's a huge if, okay? He's got to have the flat stick for this to be a thing. If he's making putts tomorrow, -10 is in play for Scotty Scheffler. Thoughts on Perez and Fox? Perez and Fox are both decent options for tomorrow. I don't want to tip my hand if I'm using either option. Perez is going to get you placement points. I also think that he's a guy that loves the crowds. And I guess something that I wanted to mention that kind of skipped my mind before is you've got the shots gained metrics you can look at. You can look at course fit, form, whatever you guys want to look at. An added narrative I'm going with, it does not have to be something that you're doing for your exposure. A narrative I'm going with is being a showman for tomorrow. There are going to be about twice as many fans out there as what we had for the first 3 days. This was already a well-attended event. There are already plenty of guys out there, particularly around the featured groups. Tomorrow is going to be an absolute movie. I mean, I'm not just saying that. They've sold 30,000 tickets, and the final 5 holes are literally an amphitheater shape. And if you know anything about golf events on Sundays, that's where everyone goes, right? You don't watch the final groups. There'll be some people that follow the final few groups, and there's everyone else on the golf course will be at holes 17, 18, I think even 16 is in that corner, just watching all that play. Those holes at the end, if you do not have your mentals down, if you can't get a grasp on the crowd, good luck. There's water in every hole. There's wind that is supposed to kick up a little bit towards the end of play. And my narrative is, particularly if I'm having to break a tie between guys, and one of them is known for liking crowds, liking energy, likes rallying them up, Waste Management, Phoenix Open kind of style. I'd rather have that player, right? Now, that's not saying that's the only thing you're using for finding players. That's not, right? But if I'm trying to choose between two guys, and one of them has an aspect and one of them doesn't, give me the guy that will shake off a crowd interaction, right? Don't give me the John Rahm that's going to sit there and have a bitch fit, throw a club, tell a fan to go fuck themselves after making a noise. Billy Horschel fits that kind of narrative. You don't want those sort of players if it's going to be that kind of atmosphere. So that's what I'll say. I guess I kind of tipped the ham on John Rahm there, but yeah, I don't want a John Rahm if he's going to be and I have to say, I bet John Rahm this week. I hope he wins the damn golf tournament, but it kind of worries me a little bit tomorrow afternoon. Thoughts on Sharma, but landed on Puig instead. I actually like both of them, Cody, but yeah, you can take a look at both. I think they're decent options. Thoughts on ADDC? I've got to say, I'm probably at like a 3.5 or a 4 out of 10. So in general, not the kind of guy that was really catching my eye because tee to green, he's losing in every category. His only positive category is the putter. So it's kind of his thing, though. He is an elite tier putter, but yeah, there's not much to get excited about, unfortunately. Polk going off tomorrow, book it. That's Tapio Polkanen, by the way, if you guys aren't familiar with who Nick's talking about. And based on his knowledge of the DP World Tour, I would not question that. Nick knows his shit. For evidence of that, look at his round 2 showdown lineup. Brian says, your Griot pick yesterday was not great, but not real bad after 18. Oh, yeah, Griot did not have the best bounce back, but that happens, man, right? Hey, I give picks all the time on stream. A lot of them don't work out. You got to keep shooting for it, right? Like I said, if I had bad picks, I'd be done streaming after one day because they happen every live stream. Luckily, give out some solid picks too, right? Rory, Aberg from yesterday, Wyndham Clark, Hovland, right? All went out there and nuked. So, yeah, you get the good ones right sometimes. So keep on going at it, man. Let's go on, Gianni. Thanks for the awesome content. Of course, thank you for the nice comment there. Xander walking in that eagle putt was badass. Yeah, dude. His back 9 was badass. And dude, the Royal Troon final 9-2 was just like hit out of a comic movie. Him going out there and just destroying birdie every single hole. Obviously, I'm an American. I hope he wins the damn golf tournament. It would be a pretty hard thing to fade him after watching that afternoon yesterday. So I'm right there with you, man. He's an absolute tank. What's going on? Andrew says, thank you for the content. You're filling a big void. Appreciate that, Andrew, in the comment there. What's going on, Antonio? What's up, bro? And I want to say, yeah, thoughts with DGen75 is an absolute legend. And hopefully he's doing good here this evening. What's going on? Antonio said, Luke, what is up, bro? Hopefully you're having a fantastic Saturday. And he said, this might be a dumb question. There are no dumb questions, so don't worry about it. But if there's a tie for gold, will they go to a playoff? Yes. So I think the way it works is if they were all tied, like let's say that like everyone was tied for first. There were like 8 people tied for first. They do a playoff. The first person to win would win gold. And actually, I think they do it the other way around, right? They like do it via process of elimination. So the last man standing would be the person that wins gold. So it all depends on where the tie is. Like, let's say somebody wins gold and then like second and third are tied. They'll do that to determine who wins second and who wins third, right? So, yeah, the answer is yes, they do playoffs to determining the medal positions, but it all depends on like where the tie is and how many are tied, because it could be a whole bunch of different situations. Yeah, 3-way tie, it would be a three-man playoff. Yeah, and essentially, like, think about it this way: you play a 3-man playoff. First hole, somebody bogeys, the other 2 par. The guy gets the bronze medal, and then the other 2 play for gold and silver. That's how it would work. Thoughts on Neiman? So I'll give you a few thoughts. Very similar to somebody like a Ludwig Gobert. They've been looking for a slight ownership discount from guys like a Tom Kim, a Hideki Matsuyama, or a Tommy Fleetwood. That's what you're going to get with Joaquin Neiman. Now, it's worth noting that they have a slightly lower placement point potential, but at -9, they're at the spot where if they shoot -5, -6 like you're hoping for a ceiling performance, that they're going to get right into that kind of spot anyway. So I would say that both are very live. They're also a little bit lower owned than some of the other options. And I think in general, both make a lot of sense. Now, I'm not playing both of them between Aubert and Joaquin Neiman, but I think both make sense. And the reason why I use both of them to talk about is I don't want to tell you whether I'm playing a specific guy. As that's on the Patreon. And you got Betson on the start from on Xander, but you also have Rahm, Fleetwood, and Tom Kim. Oh, wait, you've got bets from the start. X is the main one. Okay, I see what you're saying. And do you have those 3? Dude, that is a crazy card. A little top heavy, but dude, you got 4 guys live. I'm jealous. I've got Rahm outright. That's pretty much the main one that I'm sweating. But and I also have right, but he's a little. We definitely getting extra golf tomorrow. Nobody, we don't have playoffs. Yeah, dude, with the leaderboard, at least one playoff, right? Whether it's for bronze, whether it's for the actual top level position, I'm right there with you, man. All right, let's talk through some prop stuff. So We're going to circle over to that now. If you guys were just here for DFS, I appreciate you guys as per usual. Go ahead and smash that like button if you haven't already. Best of luck with all of your lineups. But yeah, now we're going to take a look at some of these player props on Prize Picks, Underdog, and all of that. So I know some of you were probably only here for fantasy or DFS. If that's the case, still enjoyed having you here for the live stream. Just like I said, smash that like button and make sure to stop on by next week, as we're going to have all the content for the Wyndham Championship. It's, of course, the last event of the regular season. So maybe not the strongest field, never is, but a lot of drama on the line, and GPPs to take down and outright bets that we can win too. So I'll be doing all the usual content, and look forward to it. So let's do this prop stuff now. So I already have some exposure in, so this will be probably a little bit quicker than what we normally do. Averages were pretty much spot in line with what we had for round 2. The one thing I'll say is that it was a little harder because of the par 5 pin locations. And I guess I'll just go out there and show you from the overhead views what I'm talking about. But hole 3 was to the middle right, just over this bunker. I would say probably the hardest pin that they could have had on that hole. Hole 9 was in the very back, so I guess I'll zoom in so you can see this a little bit better here, but it was playing a lot longer, and this back section of the green is the most sloped over there on hole number 9. So again, a pretty tough pin. And then 14 over here, this one wasn't that tough, but it is usually the easiest par 5. The big difference was 9. I'd say hole number 3 was pretty difficult as well. And some of the other easier holes, especially like the back 9 over here, like 12 is a pretty straightforward hole. That wasn't the easiest pin. 10 is one of the easier holes. Like that was probably the hardest pin that they could have used. I do think that the birdie average is going to marginally go up. It was closer to 4.2 the first 2 rounds, and I think it's going to be in that 4.05 to 4.15 range, which I know doesn't sound like a big difference, right? I know we're talking about like, 0.2 birdies per round, right? Difference between the 2 days, but that has a drastic impact on projections and the sort of value that you're getting. So I at least want to point that out. Bogey average is probably going to stay about the same. Worth noting that the bogey or worse average at this golf course is nearly 0.5 per round. So almost half the field went out there and made a double bogey, mostly because of all the water in play on the back 9. And speaking of that, that's why I like birdie overs a lot more than unders on strokes. And while it might be tempting to go out there and want to take like an under on strokes, especially for like the guys at 69.5, when you see them at a 4.5 birdie line, like they had Carlos Ortiz at 4.5 birdies and he's at just 69.5 stroke line. If I was going to take a positive stance on Carlos Ortiz, I would rather have the birdie line, because if you go out there, you make one double bogey, which half the field is doing, by the way. You have to make 4 birdies to overcome that. And that's let alone going out there and just making one more mistake. Well, then you have to go out there and make 5 birdies. You mix in a double or a triple bogey and you add even more difficulty on top of that. So I think the best way to kind of mitigate that is know that there's going to be mistakes, know that double bogeys might happen, and take that out of the equation. Unfortunately, Prize Picks doesn't even have birdie lines posted anymore. So I entered some props over there. They had a Tom Kim prop up at 4.5, and he was minus 180 towards the over on Caesars. So just to show you what I'm talking about here, look at this. Tom Kim is minus 180 there. They also had guys like Wyndham Clark, Tommy Fleetwood at 4.5 birdies. You can see Tommy Ladd, right, minus 155. I believe Wyndham Clark was the same number. Yeah, minus 155 towards the over. So maybe they saw that, and if they've decided to go out there and adjust the board. But either way, I'm glad that we got that value in beforehand. So we'll take a look at Underdog, see if they still have some birdie stuff posted. But I'm guessing it's because of all the sportsbook line value that we had there on Caesars. In terms of strokes, I did have an under on Scotty Scheffler strokes, and it looks like they bumped that too. So, and I know for a fact that Underdog already bumped the stuff that I took there. So there is nothing still on the board that I took about an hour ago. But luckily, we're still here on live stream, right? We can try and add something else, and I'll give you guys an idea of some of the other pieces of exposure that we can take. Let's catch up on chat, and then we'll do just that. Find some props to take for tomorrow. This guy says he's been awful on pick 6. Best of luck, my man. I hate to say it. Guys that come in here and are like saying like, oh, I've been awful, help me out. I don't know. That's just not the... I'll look at the pick 6 board and stuff, but don't count on it hitting, dude. Right? I don't give out pick 6 slips normally, but best luck to you, I guess. Brian says, last playoff, you got Hall over the Cootie bet. Yeah, dude. Nick, that's Nick you're talking to, right? Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, pick 6 has horrible lines anyways. And based on what you're saying, Jay Grimes, I don't know if you should be betting. I don't know. Just I get I get some bad vibes based on what you're saying. I don't know if you should be betting on sports if that's your take on it. Like, especially if you're like hoping other people will just like bail you out with picks. Like, I don't know, my man. I don't know if that should be your thing out there. I like to give you guys winners and stuff, but not for that kind of aspect where people like are needing a prop or whatnot. Like, that's just not healthy. We'll leave it there though. I don't want to be a huge Debbie Downer. All right, let's talk through some stuff. So they at least have birdie lines posted over here on Underdog, and they did have a few that I took already and that got posted to 0.9x. I don't think they're the worst plays. So I liked the Wyndham Clark over, right? I mentioned that one. Also, the Tommy Ladd prop I mentioned I already took. They have them all at 0.9x. If you're willing to take the hit in payout, maybe you do have like another sport you're playing, like maybe it's like UFC, MLB or something, and you have a scorcher that you're playing, maybe you could offset it with one of these 0.9x's, right? So like, let's say you're playing like a 1.1x over there, maybe in like a 1.5x combination over there, you could easily make a decent payout card using one of these sort of props. So I would probably skip off on using them just because they've bumped, but that doesn't mean that you can't mix them in if you're playing other sports. So the reason for this, by the way, the reason why I think they're decent props is the birdie average was about 4 per round, but just like I mentioned yesterday, you have to consider the fact that there are all these bottom tier players. So Matt Fitzpatrick, for example, who withdrew from the event, all these guys way over par. Your DP World Tour guys that really shouldn't even be in the field. Your Kongwat Mize, your Camillos, right, who probably shouldn't even be in the Olympics. Like, and I guess a huge Camillo fan. I have a big piece of merch in my house of Camillo, so don't take that as any sort of disrespect. But the point being that these sort of players aren't even close to the guys that we have up top, right? And if you go to the top end of the board, it's all the studs, right? The guys that are the cream of the crop here have risen to the top of the leaderboard. And if you run an effective birdie average of these kind of players, it's over 5 per round. In fact, yesterday I thought it was like around 4.5 to 4.75. Actually went and ran the average. Again, I was just taking my best estimated guess before that. It was over 5.1 birdies per round. So the reason why I like a lot of these overs on props is because the effective average was over that average. So like, that's why I guess they took down this board. Like, I guess maybe they had somebody point that out to them that was going out there and making their lines, but it was a long time coming for them to take those off. So these ones that are at 0.9x could make some sense. I'll point out some ones that don't have the multiplier just because that can be very annoying when going out there and trying to enter anything. Just taking a look at these, I know Sep was, yes, he's got 0.9x too. That's unfortunate. He didn't have that before, but he's also like minus 145 towards the over, as you can see with that sportsbook line right there. I already took the Tom Kim one. Like, a J Day's not the worst bet. Like, Shane Lowry is a top 40 birdie maker in the world. I already told you guys I kind of like Corey Connors for tomorrow. So I would be a little stingy with who you're taking, but like all of these sort of players, I will actually take J Day out because J Day isn't a top 50 birdie maker. I believe all 4 of these are top, at the very least, like 60 birdie makers on the PGA Tour. So they're not elite. I don't think any of them are in the top 30 of the PGA Tour in birdie or better percentage, but they're all above average birdie makers. And if the effective birdie average for the field was over 5 per round, right, for the studs, we're taking out all the guys that suck at this golf tournament, then why not take them without that sort of multiplier? So I'll probably play 1, 2, maybe even 3, 4. I almost might even play all 4 of them out there in my exposure. I'm going to have to run my projections after we get off live stream here. I just didn't have the time to do so before we went live on the prop side. But I'd have to imagine that Lowry was somebody I almost took for round 3, might be an option I look at. Corey Connors is almost certainly going to be somebody I add to my pool. Then Dietrich's in heavy consideration. He gained a bunch of strokes with the putter in round 3, but days 1 and 2, it was the tee to green play that was carrying him. Alex Noren also plays really well at these style courses. So I guess the weakest link here would probably be Noren because of how he's playing so far this week. But guys like Corey Connors and Thomas Dietrich are probably my favorite out of the bunch. So just for the sake of the live stream, if you guys want to get some exposure right now, I would say that there's a over 50% chance that I end up entering these 2 props. So we'll have to see. Again, I got to run my projections. I want to get an exact number on these 2, but if they're projecting for at least 5 birdies per round, which I'd have to think that they're probably going to project for over that out there in my projections, then I'm probably adding them to the mix. Let's see. Have they added back the birdie board yet? That's wild. I haven't seen them do that in quite some time. Take an entire board down because they got something wrong. And you can see over here on Underdog, like Rory McIlroy, right, is now juiced towards the over over there at 5.5 birdies. Who else is? I guess Scotty, right, is also juiced towards the over, which is a little interesting to me, especially considering that the sportsbook odds are the opposite. Actually, look at Rory's actually juiced over. That's crazy. I didn't realize that one before. Let's look. Scotty, I'd have to imagine, would also probably be juiced over. Damn. Now, I wish I would have conned that before. So those line movements must have just happened. So if we're looking here at Xander Schauffele, who I believe has a line. Let's see. Is he at the bottom? Yeah, he's right here. He's closer to even money at 5.5. He's probably not even the worst look there at 5.5 birdies. If you're going to have those other two, right, Rory, Scotty, juiced towards the over, you should have Xander juiced over too. He's been playing just as solid golf lately, if not better golf than both of those players. He's at the top end of the board. He's the kind of guy that fits this style of golf course, right? Very all-around sort of player. Definitely in play out there too. And then let's go over here on Prize Picks and see what we're doing. So they took down all the lines that I wanted to take, and I think just for the sake of principle, it might be best not to enter anything there because, as I mentioned, that back nine, all of that water, the pin locations too, they bring in a lot of water on that backside. Speaking of, I'll bring up those pin locations for you guys right now, but it's a tough scene on that back nine. The last 4 or 5 holes are going to be probably about as difficult pin locations as possible, which is why I think the birdie lines made a whole lot more sense, right? Just trying to avoid some of that carnage. And just to show you what I'm talking about, right? 18 is tucked just over the water. 16 is tucked over there towards the right side. 15 is a front pin, which brings in all of that water in play. 13, there is water over the back of that green. So I know it doesn't look like there's water in play, but there is on that sort of hole. 11 is tucked as close to the water as possible. This slope, by the way, in front of the green will take everything into the water. So once again, I know it looks like it's not that close to it, but I mean, if you miss short, you miss on that slope, it's in the water. It's going to roll the whole way down. Let's look at 1 is tucked the whole way to the left. Hole 2 is tucked just over the water. So I do think there will be scoring looks, right? I mentioned the par 5s look easier out there for Sunday, but look at all these potential double bogeys that you can have. So that's why I'm going to say and leave it. The reason why I took Scotty, by the way, the reason why I was okay taking him for strokes and he got bumped down is first off, he was minus 150 towards the under and still is. Look at this, right? Under is minus 150. So I'm okay taking that kind of sportsbook line value, but he's also the guy that won the players. He's a very conservatively aggressive player. And what you mean by that is you have a conservative target and you play very aggressive to that conservative target. What he'll do is if there's water on one side, he'll aim 30 feet to the right and hit it to a very aggressive shot, right? Very committed shot at that conservative target. And at this kind of golf course, that's what you have to do when you have those kind of pin locations. So that's why I was willing to take him for strokes because, you know, he's not immune to a water ball, right? He did that even when he won the players multiple times, but he is probably the least likely to go out there and make that kind of mistake. So that's why I was comfortable taking him for an under on strokes as opposed to some of these other guys on here. And I don't want to leave you guys completely hanging. So let me take a look at the board. So they had Windy at 69.5 on books. He was juiced minus 140 under. So I get why they moved that from 69.5 down to 69. I wasn't sure about Jason Day's line, but I'm assuming it's much of the same on him. Kind of looking at this though, I don't hate the idea. Again, I'm not sure if I'm going to play this, just like these props over here, right? I'm not 100% sure whether I'm actually going to get exposure. Want to run my projections, see if I'm comfortable. I would say much more likely to enter these, right, than I am over here on Prize Picks, just because the strokes lines are a little bit sketchy. But if I was going to do anything for strokes, I would want accurate drivers. And that's what you're getting with Carlos Ortiz. He's one of the most accurate drivers on the Live Tour. In fact, if you take a look at his recent performances, just a lot of gains in terms of that driving accuracy. I wouldn't hate an Alex Noren for a lot of the same reasoning. Let's see who else. Even a Bazainhout, right? Relatively accurate driver. Answer hasn't had the best week, but also one of those guys who's accurate off the tee. It'd probably be these sort of options at 69.5. These guys at 68.5, they are better players, but with all that water out there, especially on Sunday with the Sunday pins that we have, I feel very uncomfortable out here with the strokes board. And I guess if anything, you might want to fade guys for overs on strokes. Like, you know, I pointed out some unders at 69.5, but like you could make the argument for some of these 68.5s that like all it takes is one bad shot, right? And they might not get to that kind of score. That's why I would probably stay away from them. So it's like I said, it's a little annoying that they took off that board, but it's unfortunately what we're dealing with. Let's take a look at the pick 6 board. I do want to look at that. took down the DraftKings thing before. So let me bring that back up, and we'll catch up on chat and figure out what we're doing for pick 6. Okay, so there's the board. And let's see what's going on down there in the live chat here too. Where are we at? Right there with you, J-Miz. It was minus 150, and even with the juice, I don't think it's a horrible play. My favorite is probably Tom Kim out of the 4.5 ones. So if you're talking about the ones that have already bumped, it's Tom Kim would be my favorite because he's got minus 180 juice. The putter failed him today, yet he still made 4 birdies. And days 1 and 2, he was into the positive with the flat stick. So I like that a lot. How about EVR birdies? Not my favorite personally. Just first 3 rounds, he's been luck stacking it with the putter a bit. I guess just to show you why I have that hesitation. So these are the event averages down here. He's gaining 1.6 strokes out there with the flat stick, and he's been okay on approach, but spraying it off the tee a little bit. So it feels just a little sketchy. So he's been good on the line so far, right? He covered it today. He covered it yesterday. I believe also covered it round 1. So I understand the thought process. I think he's a decent lean for sure. Like I said, I'd be leaning over on all of these players at 4.5, but I do worry that he's not always the most consistent putter, and that has been his strongest aspect. That would be the one little pushback I'd give you. But again, don't hate it at all. Antonio says, thoughts on Xander under 67.5 and Matsuyama at 69.5. Matsuyama, for sure, for the under with plus 100. 69.5 is really where I'd cut off that line for trying to take guys. Xander, as much as I think he'll play well for tomorrow, I would probably stay away from. Glance at the Wyndham field. It's stronger than normal. I will. Thank you for letting me know, because thank God. The Wyndham can sometimes be a bit of a doozy, and luckily it's not going to be this time. So where are we at? They posted it a few days ago, right? Like on Friday? Here it is. So let's find the good names, shall we? Akshay, the Zane Hoot, okay, Keegan. That's pretty decent. Who else we got? Luke Clanton. Okay, you love to see that. Eric Cole playing. My boy, Eric Cole. Cam Davis, Thomas Dietrich playing a shit ton of golf. He's going to be sore by the end of this run. Ryan Fox, same thing, playing a whole lot of golf. I wouldn't be surprised if like one of those guys withdraws, if we're going to be honest, especially like Dietrich if he ends up getting a medal this week. But who else? We got Ben Griffin's in the field. Brian Harmon's playing. Okay, and this is, of course, made for Brian Harmon. I kind of like that. Højgaard's playing, another guy, taking the trip from Paris over there to this event. Sun JM, okay. Yeah, you're right. Stronger field than normal. Siwoo Kim's playing. He always plays the Wyndham, though. You always play Siwoo Kim at the Wyndham as well. Who else is on here? I guess that's about it, huh? McNeely, Keith Mitchell. God damn. Aaron Rye. This isn't the worst field. It's not the strongest field, right? Let's not kid ourselves, but it's not too bad. I'm trying to see if there's any like superstars I'm missing. Jordan Spieth. Oh, look at that. Couldn't have missed that one. Okay, Spieth's playing. I love that. That makes it slightly more interesting for me, at least, as a big super fan. You got EVR playing. He plays every damn week. I guess that shouldn't be a surprise. Vegas playing after his big win. Cam Young, I like that. I think it's a decent course fit. They got Willie Z down there as well. And glad to see Willie Z playing, as he's been dealing with the injury stuff. So hopefully he actually tees it up. Just wanted a couple of leans. Gotcha. It's just how you said it, man. I'm not trying to be a dick about it, but like when you come into somebody's chat and you're like, oh, I've been losing, can you give me a pick? It comes off as the vibes of like, you're like begging for like free profit. Like that's just not going to happen, right? So like, that's why I reacted that way. Sorry if you took it the wrong way, but I don't know. I've seen people like that before. Maybe I just made an assumption, but usually the people that frame the questions like that, it's coming from a weird place a lot of times. Antonio says, how far back is too far back? Depends on what you're asking for, Antonio. If you're asking for the win, probably 5 shots is too much, because I can't imagine that those guys up top aren't going to shoot at least -3, -4. At least one of the two, right? I mean, Xander, John Rahm up there. I can't imagine that both of them are going to put up a stinker. So yeah, I don't think in terms of a gold medal that you can be that far back, because even if you shoot -8, -9, like I think is possible, those guys up top are likely going to push you from a -14 score. Of course, EVR has a tendency to choke on Sundays. That too. And a lot of times a guy will cover a prop the first 3 days and just suck on Sundays. because of good old regression anyways. You go out there, you have your best stuff. Oftentimes it's due to come down at some point. It's not a guarantee, but it is at least worth pointing out. How is my kick in the nuts going? I fell back a little bit after round one. I'm no longer in the lead. In fact, I didn't check after play ended. If you guys can't tell, I don't really look at DraftKings until Sunday. That's why, like, after Thursday's round, I didn't even know I was leading the big GPP until the guy told me down in chat, because I just literally don't look. So let me check. My best lineup is in the top 300. But we have some work to do, and particularly, I need some work from Carlos Ortiz and Sharma in my top lineup. So we'll have to see how it works. Do the pins look easier for round 4? I think that they do, yes, especially on the par 5s. Now, it's a more nuanced question than that, right? Because it's not just about the par 5s. The holes with water are going to be harder. They have them even more tucked than what they had for moving day. But in comparison, hole 9 is a whole lot easier. It was tucked in that back corner. Now it's in the middle right, and should be a lot easier to go out there and reach. I believe hole 3 is another par 5. It was tucked in that back right corner. Now it's more towards the middle. So if you're in this bunker, it's a much easier up and down than there in that back right. And if you happen to miss to the left, it's also a much easier shot than having to come the whole way across the screen. You still have enough room to get up and down, right, with all this room, but it's not too much room where it's hard to get the exact weight. And then the last par 5 is what, 14, I believe? It is tucked a little bit further back, but it is the most reachable of all the par 5. So if any of them is going to be pushed back a little bit, I would rather it be 14. Not 9, which is the longest of the par 5s, and hole 3 is also very reachable. So this actually had a back pin location the first few days, and they were still making eagles at that kind of hole. So I think the real big decider is hole number 9, because just to show you the impact on the scoring today, right? Hole number 9 only played 0.15 under par. The day before that, played almost twice as much under par. The day before that, it played 0.35 under par. And the most comparable pin location to what we're going to get for tomorrow is the one where it was 0.35 under par, and it had a 37% birdie rate. Today, it only had a 30% birdie rate, but also a 15% bogey rate. So I think you're going to see those kind of factors help the players out. But at the same time, the reason why I say it's more nuanced is you're going to see more blowups. Like, you're going to see a lot, probably 0.6, 0.7 doubles per round, just because of all that water in play. Pick 6 board looks good. We'll take a look. Appreciate your info. Good luck, of course. And you're good, dude. I'm just letting you know. Like, just letting you know where I'm coming from, right? I'm a very transparent, blunt person. I will never skate around, be around the bush, as someone call it. I just call things for how they are. Whether it's going to make people feel good or bad about things, I give them the truth. So let's talk through a few things. So pick 6, you said they had something up, and they have 5.5 birdie lines up, which if you're going with the plus EV lean, right, Rory and Scotty Scheffler were juiced towards the over. And because I do like these birdie lines a whole lot more than I like the stroke stuff, this is probably where we're gonna put most of our exposure in. So Hideki was minus 170 over. That would be a heavily juiced plus EV lean. The Tom Kim was minus 180 towards the over. So that's another one that you could look at. Fleetwood, Wyndham Clark, all of these sort of guys are guys that I would 100% like for an over. The issue is that you have to have an over and an under out there for your card. So if you're going to try and make this slip work, maybe you could take Scotty out, right, and put an under on strokes, but it would be these kind of lines. Now, would I enter a 6-man slip? Probably not, right? Because you have to get 6 legs right. But breaking this up into like 2-man slips or 3-man slips, probably not the worst idea. Now, the issue with this site is that if you're going to go like 2 3-man slips, you don't want to use Scotty under strokes in every slip, right? What if he misses? Perfectly capable for him to go out there and miss. Now it's great to have a minus 150 prop in our favor. That's obviously value that we want to mix in, but at the same time, you don't want to overexpose yourself no matter how good the prop is. So I would say that the board's much better. They actually posted props this time around. Last few days, they didn't give us strokes or birdie lines. They at least have all these up now, and I think that those are decent leans. But you'd have to find some like unders on strokes that you like. And based on what we have here, nothing really stands out. Like maybe you could go with a Windy C under on strokes. Like maybe that could be another under on strokes that you're mixing in. But outside of that, these 68.5s I don't love. Heck, even Windy C at 69.5, I feel pretty sketchy about with how inaccurate he is off the tee. It's just not my favorite place to play. And part of that is usually because they don't have the best lines available. I'm a little bit better today. Not a bunch of options, but again, better than what we had the last 2 days. The main issue I have with it is the fact that you have to do the over and under, and also the fact that I'm assuming that everyone's going to play these props, right? Not only are they going to see my content if they're watching it, but these are like the slam dunk obvious plays if you're looking at the sportsbook lines. And I'm not the only person that does that. In fact, a lot of people, when they're playing pick six, that's how they make all of their exposure. So, you'd be dumb to think that these aren't going to be popular plays. And if you know how the payouts work over here in pick six, that has a drastic impact on what you're actually going to get back. So, yeah, it's not my favorite site to play. In fact, I can't even play it down here in Florida. Right? That's why I don't focus on it over here in my content, is I can't get exposure myself. And, with being blunt, transparent, right, it goes with the plays as well, with my advice. Like, I only tell people things that I'll do myself, right? I don't like speculating. I don't like giving out plays that I won't enter, like a lot of other touts out there. A lot of Twitter cappers, a lot of people that are posting their outright card of the week that can't even bet outrights, or that are posting outright numbers that they got that aren't even available in the state that they live in. I mean, it's comical, right? So like, you're always going to get a straightforward, straight shot from me. And I guess the thing for pick six is that the format's just not great. So that's all I'll say about it. Alrighty, guys, I think that's all we've got for this live stream, though. So hopefully you feel a little bit more prepared for all of your action and ready to get after it out there for Sunday. Best of luck, like I said. Go out there, take down a GPP or two for me, and also go out there and cash in your prop slips. I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fairy tale ending with this absolutely star-studded field. So let's go out there and take advantage. As I mentioned, Wyndham Championship stuff coming the week after. So subscribe if you guys haven't already so you don't miss any of the content to come. That's all I've got, guys. Appreciate you, and I'll check you guys out later.